Hello and good afternoon to all the students present for this session, and we are moving through our journey. In Advanced Strategic Management, we are going for this Unit 5 of Block 2, where today we are going to discuss the basic aspects of strategic alliances. So students, just to have a recapitulation of all those aspects that we discussed till now, like we have understood the impact that is internal environmental forces, the external environmental forces such as this political, economical, social, technological, all of those forces do put an impact on the organization. So survival has been a question mark for the organizations, and organizations need to take all such different kind of possible actions to ensure their survivability. And in this aspect, we have understood the importance of strategic management. Like we have understood how these strategies of the organization, the tactics of the organizations helps the organization to reach to the said objectives. We have understood the basic aspects of the corporate strategy itself. Right? We have understood how in its journey through its lifespan, mostly during the maturity phase or at the beginning of the declining phase itself, you see that the organizations need to come out with different alternative choices, right? So based on the impact that the organizations do have because of these forces, organizations need to choose either they will go for this stability strategy, where we understand that it's a very slow growth or no growth strategy itself. Organizations continue in their own journey of like survivability. Beyond that, if the organizations would like to adopt growth strategy, then these organizations must think of the integrations or expansion aspects. Right? Integration can be like vertical, where organizations would like to, tie up with some of their suppliers, particularly who are there working in the same supply chain. Maybe like both the organizations are in a different stage of supply chain, but similar supply chain itself. So that kind of thing organizations do have to ensure that their survivability is there. Right? And in expansion, we discussed in detail the different aspects of mergers and acquisitions. And in our previous class, like we were discussing the different aspects of diversification itself. Right? We are talking of concentric diversifications, conglomerate diversifications, the different things that we need to take into consideration for making these diversifications ending up with the result, right? So all of those aspects we have already discussed. Now, in continuing with that, in the expansion strategy itself, right, or mostly we are talking of this as a part of the internal strategy, right? We are forming strategic alliances. Now, one thing we need to understand over here is that there are plenty of challenges for the organizations, and mostly when these organizations are expanding at the domestic level, or maybe they are going beyond the domestic territory to have their operations in international level. So they do come out with the challenges like deregulations, the challenges like various threats imposed by globalization itself. They do have technological advancement challenges itself. Mostly, they do also think of surviving in a new market niche altogether. So expanding to a market need altogether. Right? So whenever we have these kind of challenges, how are we going to survive? That's the biggest question. Similarly, we say that the present day's business is characterized as a VUCA business, where we have understood that the business is highly volatile, the business is highly uncertain, business is highly complex, and ambiguous also, right? So reason being these exogenous forces where we don't have a control over. So anything can happen. Any kind of economic recessions can happen. Any kind of say natural calamities, natural disasters can happen, and we don't have a choice other than to find our own ways of survival, right? So we need to think of that. But again, whenever we do talk of the growth strategy, we are expanding our business from domestic level of territory to the international borders itself. We do think of a requirement of a wider level of competences to deal with all of those kind of challenges. We need to have technological advancements. We need to have market niches, and perhaps achieving these things will not be possible for us to do it alone, and that is where we need to have partnerships with other organizations, and that partnership is what we call it as the strategic alliances. It happens. Lucy, Gallo, a company which is one of the largest wine producers of the world, right? They don't have, they don't grow grapes as such. But how could this be possible that a company which doesn't have a field of their own is number one winemaking, right? But you see, one of the common example you can think of Nike. Nike shoes, you can think, they don't manufacture shoes of their own, but still they are one of the leading brands of athletic footwear. How could these things be possible? In fact, we say that these are not the choices anymore, but these are the demand of the present day. If I need to survive, I need to build up partnerships with others, and that is where we do come out with the concept of strategic alliances. Right? So, strategic alliances is any kind of arrangement you to see whereby these organizations, mostly common two organizations, they do pursue their common interest, is what we call it as strategic alliances. It's all about having that common level of interest among the two organizations, right? The other point is that it's an agreement between the firms to do business together in the ways in which the normal company to company dealings would be there, right? Like, objective is just to gain that competitive advantage by sharing our resources, just to gain that competitive advantage by sharing our technological tools, the production technologies, the human resource technology, human resource things, all of those things can be there, right? So here we need to understand one thing, that this kind of arrangements or the agreements between the organizations can be done in two different ways. There can be a simpler way of carrying out these strategic alliances, where two such organizations they do come together just to have an arrangement of sharing their resources. This is the simplest form of the organization. Resources means, technological, production, human resources, each and everything, market resources, everything, right? So they do share resources to gain that competitive advantage. They do share resources to have the synergy effect. But whenever we do talk of these arrangements could also be highly complex in nature. Complex in a sense that, where I do say that simpler alliances have two organizations sharing their resources. A complex form of alliances are multi-level of organizations involved in the process. So there can be more than two organizations, there can be multi-level of organizations, several organizations, companies. They form an alliance, right? They may not be at the same, they may not be operating in the same territory. They may have their operations from different locations altogether, but altogether they can be joining hands to have that competitive advantage. Like, would you say that no, these alliances can be as simple as that a handshake agreement? We said nothing, no more formalities, nothing. We have an insight into the things, then have gone for an agreement, right? Just to share resources, right? But at times, whenever we do talk of these alliances could be highly complex, highly lengthy, like may have all pertinent facts being recorded in terms of the contract itself. So all of those things do have, but you know, to understand one thing, that whenever these organizations they go for strategic level of alliances, making a strategic alliance with one another, sometimes they go for these strategic alliances for particular set of products or particular products itself. So it may so happen that out of the entire product portfolio, the organizations will go for forming a strategic alliance for a particular number of products, and other products can be ignored out of that. So these are the three, these are the aspects that we need to take into consideration whenever we do talk of these strategic level of alliances, right? But like, if we do talk of the basic traits of this strategic level of alliance, once the management guru Peter Drucker said that the greatest change in the corporate culture and the way the business is being conducted, right, is the accelerating growth of relationships based not on ownership but on partnership, right? The objective is that I by myself cannot do everything. Organizations by themselves cannot accomplish the said objectives by themselves. Reason being, the complexities surrounding. Reason being, they're not confined to a particular geographical location. Reason being, they're open systems, open to the external constituencies, right? So that is the reason this strategic level of alliances are no more a choice for the organization. Rather, these alliances are being taken as an integral part of their expansion strategy, their growth strategy. And this is how we do understand the traits related to the strategic level of growth by the organizations itself, right? Where we do say that, of course, we have understood that this strategic alliances leads to superior growth, right? But you need to understand that this strategic alliances also gives a high return on the investments and high return on the equity. Statistics says that more than 20% of the total revenue generated in UK and USA is through this strategic alliances itself. So look at this powerful train that these strategic alliances are making in the organizations, right? We are also thinking of getting this market value itself. We say organizations do have value propositions. Like two organizations, they do tie up with one another, come out with a superior product, right? So bringing out with the synergy effect itself, or that new product, that new service, whatever these organizations do develop, do have higher value propositions. So that is an advantage that these organizations need to take into consideration whenever it comes to their operations itself. We say these strategic alliances improve the operational level like the basic operations of the organization, the competitiveness aspects of the organization. Uh, we say like it's all about sharing the resources, as I said, technological resources like informational resources, the human resources, or you say any other kind of resources, market resources. You do talk of the distribution channel. You do talk of the all those aspects of the organization where these organizations do lack, or sometimes developing these kind of resources are very time consuming process, are very cumbersome process. So why to waste our time, energy, and money in developing those kind of resources? Why not to have the alliances with other organizations who already have a possession of those kind of resources? That is what we need to understand, right? Joint marketing and promotional purposes. This is one of the most important aspects for which these organizations do go for strategic level of alliances itself. More than 54% of the total number of alliances made is related to this marketing and promotional purposes only, right? We'll see that other aspects of the things are also there, but you know 54% because of this marketing and promotional purchases itself. Now this alliances also help these organizations to reduce the financial risk, to reduce the political risk itself. Like financial risk in a sense, like always it would be better if you do share the advantages as well as the risks. Similarly, whenever we do have a basic challenge of going beyond the domestic level of territory to international organizations, right? So there we may come across with many such pressure being imposed on the organization because of the different cultural aspects, the legal aspects, political scenario itself, right? So making a strategic alliance will help us out in minimizing those kind of risks which are involved by involved in the process of expansion itself, right? And of course, we do talk of having this competitive advantages itself. But beyond this, statistics also says that more than 70% of the alliances made end up not by producing the desired result. And more than 70% of the strategic alliances do not produce the desired result. What could be the reason for that? Maybe we'll explore all of those things, right? But maybe the warning signal that we do have over here is that before going for any kind of strategic alliances, we should have a careful consideration of the basic purpose, the basic aspects, and the organizational aspects itself. We'll deal that. We'll discuss that in detail. That is what we need to understand over here, right? So continuing with this change, if I do make an analysis of the various factors actually which are a reason for having these strategic alliances. Now, Jack Welch once said, if you think you can go it alone in today's economy, you are highly mistaken. You cannot go by yourself. You have to formulate. You have to go for partnering concepts. You have to have these alliances. Then only you'll be successful. Right? So that is what we need to understand. That these strategic alliances, even if is not a choice for the organizations anymore, they have to go. But at the same time, they cannot go for these strategic alliances arbitrarily. You have to take a call on different aspects, evaluate properly, and then. Right? So the basic factors which are responsible is the factors related to the expansion strategies of the organizations, where we do say that organizations nowadays, because of the opening of these global economies, right? Organizations nowadays are not confining themselves to the domestic territory only. They go beyond their operations. Maybe in module 3, we are going to discuss these aspects in detail, where we'll see that organizations starting from domestic level of operations, when they move to global level of operations, we say they pass through 4 different phases, being internationalization, multinationalization, transnationalization, and being a global organization, right? So all these different phases of the organization's expansion from being a domestic level of organization to a global level of organization puts a lot of challenges on the organization itself. And what is required is, if I would like to have that success, I need to have that competitive advantage. If I need to have that success, I need to prove my excellence in terms of everything, in terms of production to the products to the competencies, whatever I do have, right? So the challenges that we do have is globalization. The challenges that we do have is expansion, and that is what these organizations are thinking of, going for a rapid technological shift, and they need to go for a rapid product innovation itself. As simple as that, we do say that there's a complete shift in terms of the manufacturing strategy itself. Gone are the days when we used to say that produce anything that can be sold. But nowadays, it is not possible. Nowadays, you have to produce only those goods or services which are required by the consumers, right? So understanding the needs of the consumers, then bringing out with the kind of modifications, changes, launching a new product is what that the present day demands. And that could be possible because of the high level of technological changes, shifts that we witness at the present time. Science and technology is having a rapid growth. So any sort of technology may come in, right? Like just think of a particular process where we used to have all of our production processes being carried out in a manual way. From manual way, we started automation process, computer-aided manufacturing, computer-aided designing. From automation, we have shifted to nanotechnologies. From nanotechnologies, we have shifted to robotics. Maybe the present day is based on artificial intelligence. And so many changes are happening around us. It's making a complete shift in terms of the technological aspects. So that is what organizations need to adapt. But do they have their resources? Do they have that competences in terms of technology? Do they have those kind of technologies which can lead them to have better products? Right? So organizations need to form alliances. Beyond that, also there is a challenge that we do see that nowadays, the demand is to act in a very faster way because of the competition, right? Sometimes you do say the early bird catches the prey is more appropriate at the present time. So if I'm not acting of faster, if I'm not innovating your products to meet the requirements of the customers, then perhaps the customers will have alternative aspects with them, alternative choices available with them. So there will face a lot of problems. Right? So that is why the organizations need to act faster, but with limited resources. That makes the organizations more challenging. Resource constraint is always there. Right? So maybe an innovation in the product segment, maybe an innovation in terms of the technological aspects, may be going or acting faster, or coming out with limited sort of resources. What can solve all of these problems is to have a strategic alliance. That is what we need to understand. And beyond that, we need to identify, protect, and enhance our own capabilities. That is what is also an essence of the organizations. We need to identify the basic resources that we do have. You cannot find out, or you cannot afford to lose those kind of resources. So whatever resources are there, protect them first, develop these resources, enhance the resources itself, right, in terms of its capabilities, and there may be a probability that you'll be successful in terms of internal integration or vertical integration, whatever you talk of, right? But most of the time, considering the present day's demand, organizations are not having enough resources to meet the requirements, and that is where we come out with an identification of the skill gap, the resource gap. What I do have, what I need to have in future, right? And in particularly, if I do talk of this age of uncertainties, we do say age of uncertainties itself, to expand quickly or to grow quickly, and to develop my resources. Do I have that time with me to develop those resources? At one point of time, we do say that to act in a faster way. Developing resources takes time. Developing resources takes investments. Developing resources takes a lot of pain. So it cannot be developed overnight. All of us we need to understand. Right? So what is the option left out is that we need to form strategic alliances. We need to partner with other organizations who do come out with similar sort of resources, right? And sometimes it's a give and take kind of relationship, right? So you would like to save time, boost productivity. We need to extend our technical and operational resources, and that can be possible through the alliances only. So these are the basic resources that we, basic reasons for alliances, as if we have understood earlier. As I said, sometimes these alliances can be as simple as that, with a handshake agreement kind of thing, or it can be a very complex, lengthy agreement between multi organizations, right? But if we do see the trained, technical companies, technology related companies, now why do they form a strategic alliances? Reason being, they are basically searching for a more established channel of distribution. They are going for brand reputation of bigger and better players itself. They are searching for the ways by which this market expansion can be there. But in contrary to that, in a multi-traditional business, right, they do go for expanding into new geographical regions, reducing the cost of the manufacturing processes itself, right? Or they would like to get the benefit out of the supply chain synergies. These are the aspects where these organizations are benefited out of this entire process of alliances, right? So just to sum up, the basic factors which promote the strategic alliances are like moving decisively to seize their opportunities before they disappear. As I said, now it has to be, a call has to be taken at the beginning of the declining phase itself. What to do, what not to do, whether we'll continue with the same pace and phase, or we need to grow and expand, or we need to retrench turnaround, all of those things, right? So we need to respond more quickly to the change with greater flexibility. This is what that the present day demands, right? Change is the only option left out for us. If we do not upgrade ourselves on a continuous basis, if we do not change ourselves on a continuous basis, it may so happen that the organization will lose its relevance, sustainability, and organization may perish. You have to understand that, right? So increasing the market share is, of course, another one very common notion of these alliances itself. To have these new markets or to beat others in that particular market, you need to collaborate with others, have these partnerships with others, right? Sometimes you are making a partnership with others just to overcome your weaknesses. Whatever loopholes that you do have, or the problems that you do have, you need to overcome that. That is the reason where you need to work on. Perhaps it is in terms of the skill and competences that you do lack, right? And when you do lack in terms of skill and competences, you do come out with these alliances, basically to enhance your resources, multiply your resources, right? So that is where we do say that the strategic level of alliances are no more a choice for the organizations, right? Now, if we do see the basic types of strategic level of alliances, right? You have to understand one thing that this can be broadly classified under three heads, as we have understood. That can be a simple strategic alliance, which goes on with the objective of sharing their resources only. And so here you do talk of a very distance arrangement. So maybe simple in a sense, it's highly short term, contractual. Like you do talk of licensing, cross marketing, or outsourcing kind of thing, right? So these are the strategic alliances which focuses on accomplishing a particular objective of the organization, short-term objective of the organization. Strategic alliances can also be like working with a very working in a very closer way, a close deal, we do say, where the organizations share each and every aspect of their operations. Like you're talking of resources, the processes, value chains, everything is shared by the organization. Right? So the partnering organizations would like to exchange all of these things with one another as a contract of this particular demand alliance itself. Okay? Strategic alliances can also be complex at the next level, in a sense where sometimes you do see that the partners do make alliances having a share in their stakeholdings, equity in their stakeholdings itself, right? So all of those partners take the equity in the stakeholdings of the other partner. So that is the highest level of having these strategic alliances itself, right? However, in a study, this Coopers and Librand, they have identified, this graph shows that they have identified the basic reason for which these organizations are going for forming strategic alliances. As I said before also, like for this joint marketing and promotion, 54% of the organizations, right? Joint selling and distribution, 42% of the organizations do form alliances with the reason of joint selling and distribution. Production, 26% of the total alliances are made because of that. 23% of the total alliances are made having an objective to design these collaborations, right? Technological license, 22% you see. Research and development, 19%. Other like purposes, outsourcing purposes itself are 19%. So these are the things, these are the basic aspects of the organization that you should take into account, right? And statistics says it's all about like whether improving the production process, production or the product shipment itself, or entering into a new market. Basically, the organizations do have a challenge of getting that competitiveness in terms of market expansions. So having that, organizations do not have an alternative than to go for alliances. May it be at the domestic level or entering into a new market niche at the domestic level, or may it be at the international level. That is what we need to understand. So here we broadly classify all of those types into three broad categories. There can be marketing and sales alliances, where we are going for this joint marketing agreements, right? Or to have that value addition in the process. So value added resellers can be there, right? Where you are promoting a particular product, maybe at the domestic level or at international level or in a new market niche altogether with these kind of things, right? Sometimes you are going for product and manufacturing alliances itself. Product manufacturing alliances, mostly it's the procurement supplier alliance itself, right? Where you are going for vertical integration, internal integration to supply certain uh, aspects in the entire supply chain process. And sometimes you are going for joint manufacturing itself, right? But technology and know-how alliances, but technology alliances are like mostly to develop these technologies or to gain that competitive advantage through the technological advancements itself, right? Sometimes this industry university collaborations do facilitate in joint research kind of thing. So that kind of collaborations can also be there. That kind of alliances can also be there. So all of those things can be taken as a part of the strategic alliances, right? But classified under three heads doesn't mean that these three heads will be as it is. No. Sometimes we refer a hybrid mode also. So any of these three broad category of alliances can be taken along with the others. As such, you do talk of like sometimes you do talk of R&D, research and development, crossing with this product and manufacturing alliances itself, right? So technology merging with product and manufacturing itself. Sometimes you do talk of this marketing and sales alliances do merge with this product and manufacturing alliances itself. So based on your requirements only, you need to have the core objective of these alliances defined. Other than that, if we go for other reasons, right, or if we do not prepare ourselves for a particular objective of the organization, it will be very difficult for us to comply with the requirements, right? So here, the basic thing, the simplest form of alliances are that contractual agreement should say, whatever I told you, that simplest form, it's a contractual agreement. So here, what is there? That particular contract, you do define the duties and responsibilities of each party, like what is that confidentiality terms, the non-competition terms, because here sometimes you do have whenever you are making a particular contract for a particular product, then the other products that you do have do face stiff competition. So you are not going for an alliance with the other organizations for all of your products. May it happen that you are making an alliance for few of your products, right? So that is what. Getting? So what would be the payment terms? What would be the scientific technical milestones that those organizations are like to accomplish? Like what would be the sharing of? Normally, it is seen that whenever there is an agreement or there is a contract related to alliances, they do take all those tangible resources. But most of the time, these intangible resources do also play a very significant role. Like to have this, intellectual properties like copyrights, patents, innovations, all of those things, right? So who is going to owe that? How this ownership is going to be defined for this non-tangible things? That is what it is. Remedies for breach of contract, what it would be like that, and termination of contract. These are the things. Similarly, this complex form of these strategic alliances will take, now intending to have a long-term alliance, of course, right? And there's a significant commitment of resources by each party, right? So it may not be like the simplest form where one party is to contribute in terms of resource and the other party contributes in terms of market penetration. So here both the parties, they act simultaneously, right? So the interaction between parties would be frequent over there. Separate management structure should be there. Like here we say that whenever you are going for a complex form of alliances, like it may so take the shape of mergers and acquisitions even, right? So there, two different entities form a third entity. Right? So this third management structure should be defined properly, and unique regulatory issues should be there. How to handle that, what to be done over there, like that only. But we say that this strategic alliances takes three major aspects into consideration: the licensing arrangements, joint ventures, and the cross-holding or equity stakes or consortia itself. Right? Whenever we to talk of the first one, licensing arrangement is one of the form of strategic alliances, which we can say is a very simpler form of having these strategic alliances, right? So you give, in particularly, if you do say, if I to talk of this manufacturing industry itself, right? So manufacturing industries do exchange the technological knowledge, the production knowledge with the market, right? So one organization having strong competencies in terms of technology or production, making a partnership with the other organization which do have a capture over the market. Right? If I do talk of say pharmaceutical industries, if you want to say, they simply allow licenses to produce and sell the products, right? So these are simpler kind of things, right? So basically objective is to commercialize any such new technology. If I am having a new technology, let me commercialize that by expanding into new market segments. So that can be there. Or as a part of your global expansion strategy, you are going for the brand franchising concept. Brand franchising is the reason itself. Like to say, Nicholas Pyramid India Limited, they have formed a strategic alliances for 5 years with this Genzyme Corporation of USA to have this viscous supplement in India, right? So it's simple. One company does have the technology, the other does have the market, tying up to solve the problem. But whenever we talk of this joint ventures itself, these joint ventures could be very, can have the complex form of its own, where we do say that, these partners to create a third entity, like in terms of mergers and acquisitions, where two organizations do merge to create a third entity, right? But here, unlike the licensing arrangements, in joint ventures, the parties actually contribute in terms of their resources, in terms of their processes, in terms of their supply chain, in terms of their competencies, everywhere over there, right? We say joint ventures can be like, an example can be like vertical integrations, as if we have understood itself, right? Vertical integrations are a part where we are making alliances or we are partnering ourselves with the other organizations who are in different phase of my supply chain. Like we do talk of JSSL, Jindal Stainless Steel Limited, right? They have formed alliances with other organizations, like from East Africa, Southeast Asian countries, different organizations, right? To ensure that they do get enough amount of raw material. So they manufacture steel, but they need ferrochrome for that. So who is going to supply? That is what we do say, right? We do talk of these joint ventures that the organizations do go for, having an objective of learning skills, upgrading skills, right? Like Voltus has gone for a alliance to upgrade their technological aspects itself, right? Or sometimes you are also going for getting that future industry revolution itself, or making yourself ready for the future industry revolution, right? So that kind of thing can be there. But whenever we to come out with this cross holdings, equity stakes and consortiums itself, here you need to understand that this is the highest level of alliances where we do have multiple partners in the alliance itself, multiple organizations do come out for the same thing, right? And they owe the equity shares of other organizations. That is what we need to understand. Okay? Now, coming to the basic benefits, as if we have understood that, the reason for which these organizations should form a strategic alliance is to ensure that competitive advantage. Right? This one. But beyond that, these are the particular objectives for which we form these strategic alliances, where we say that one of the objectives is to enter into newer market where I may not have a stand. Because entering into newer market, we do have bigger challenges. Like, if I had to talk of similar sort of cultures, then it's a different thing. Multi-level of cultures, it's a different thing, right? So cultural barrier would be there, language shift would be there, the legal aspects of the things would be there. So it's better if I like to expand, I need to tie up with others, form partnerships with others, right? Similarly, like Tata Group of companies, it would take an example, like Tata Group of companies, when they were interested for entering into Chinese market, they have formed a alliance with this Brilliance Automotive, right, in China itself. Similarly, same Tata Group, right, they have made in South Korea to expand their business itself, right? So this is the thing that we need to take into consideration, that this to need to enter into near markets, right? Reducing manufacturing cost, of course, we have understood that, right? But beyond that, whenever we talk of these technological advancements, right? Right, adopting new technologies or diffusing the technologies with our own, right? So there, you need to think of teaming up with other players, because developing these resources is a very hectic process, right? It's a time-consuming process. That doesn't mean that you cannot develop, but it will require plenty of time. But nowadays, you need to act faster. That is what that makes these organizations to go for strategic alliances, right? So there, through these strategic alliances, there will be a technology transfer. If this technology transfer would be there, then definitely both the organizations can have their own things, right? And we say, TCS is making an alliance with the ANSYS Incorporation just to have their technological transfer, right? Knowledge transfer itself. Okay? We say it's reducing financial risks, the cost of research and development, everything. So whatever you do it for your survival, right? So when the survival is a question mark, you do have the entire supply chain, like starting from the procurement of raw material to delivering these goods and services to the customers itself, the entire channel that has to be taken into consideration. Okay? But As I said, whenever you are making a strategic alliance, do see you are partnering with other. So most of the time, the shift goes from your own product segments to the mutual product segments, right? So if this happens, then that may affect the existing business scenario. That is what you need to understand. Existing business scenario. So the thing that we need to take into consideration is to form alliances, but at the same time, we need to, give a thrust on the existing set of products or business, whatever we do have, right? These are the risks involved, like the costs of any such kind of strategic alliances. As I said, more than 70% of the strategic alliances fails because of the right aspect of forming the alliances. So that is where we need to think of making an evaluation of the various risks involved in the process, right? So the biggest is most of the organizations, they do focus on the financial aspects of forming an alliance, ignoring the people dimensions of it, the cultural dimensions of it, right? So culture and language barrier is one of the reason where it may lead to the failure of the alliance itself. There's a complete shift, as if you can see, the Eastern economies like in Japan, say, the management is more employee oriented than the shareholders. But in Western countries, they give high thrust on the shareholders than on employees. Now, this sort of cultural, shift, if not being taken properly, may end up with the disaster itself. That's what we say. Companies do not trust one another. They do lack in terms of their competencies, right? Most of the time, organizations lack in terms of their competencies itself. What it happens over here, you need to understand. Most of the time, the contracts or the agreements that you do come out with during the strategic alliances addresses major issues, right? But I'm talking of the issues which are not being addressed in the contracts. What if we are going to do that? I'm talking of those issues which are not in the new rule book. What we are going to do with that? So that is where this conflicts to arise. That is where the blame game starts. That is where they lack in terms of their commitment towards the project. And this is where, yes, most of the time organizations lose their autonomy in the process of mutual gain, right? Autonomy in a sense, like sometimes I do have my own goals, and at the same time I do have mutual goals of the organization, right? I'm having my own goal, I'm having mutual goal. Okay? So shift is on mutual accomplishment of goals. What about the individual goals? Right? So most of the time these goals are to use the kind of resources available. So it should not happen that you're completely shifting the utilization of the resources for the partnering organizations. So that balance has to be maintained, right? Lacking clear goals and the objective itself. Look, most of the time, organizations do end up with a wrong decision of alliances. Like we said, no, most of the organizations, they do go for this marketing and promotional channels itself is the reason for alliances. But it has been observed that without having a proper understanding of the things, having that intention of getting a or winning over the competition itself or getting a new market itself, they end up with more competition. That is what we need to understand, right? Lack of differences in this management team, management style itself. Different countries, as I said, they do have different sort of managerial practices, philosophies itself, right? Some of the organizations they do go for autocratic, some go for participative, some go for a kind of democratic kind of thing. So having a difference in terms of their managerial capabilities, abilities will lead to a different sort of problem for the strategic alliances, right? Lack of commitment, we have already discussed that. Problems in terms of agility itself. Sometimes you have to think of bringing a change in the complete organizational structure, because whenever you are making, say, in terms of this complex strategic alliances, where you are going for a third entity altogether. So what would be the structure? What would be the reporting relationships? What would be the chain of command? What will be the unity of command? All those things are to be addressed in a proper way. In a simpler sense, if I'll say that I cannot have two CEOs in my organization, I cannot have two finance directors in my organization, how to restructure that? So this is a problem that need to be addressed. And managing these alliances, particularly like whenever we do say that we are going for a multi-level of alliance, that's a problem. So dealing with all of those things can only help the organizations to overcome their aspects of the alliances itself, right? But still, we need to think of the various factors in general that contribute for the successful strategic alliances. No, we have understood that the involvement of the top level managerial people, the senior management, their commitment towards making that things happen is highly essential. So the senior management should be ready to contribute their roles and responsibilities. Egoism is what that should be completely avoided over here, right? Similarly, management philosophies, like we have said, what would be your approach to the organization, right? But one thing we need to understand that there has to be proper performance feedback. You need to think of complete, goal setting process, but that doesn't mean that like once it is said, you leave it as it is. No, there has to be a proper process of evaluation. There has to be an yardstick of evaluation through which we can say that we are moving in the right direction, right? So what is required is a proper planning process. Okay? What we need to understand that we have set our vision, our value systems. We need to understand both the partners in the alliance must understand these things. They must understand the vision of their own, the value system of their own and of their partner, right? They must make agreements on the conditions, market conditions itself, right? So a thorough study of market conditions, then based on that, you'll think of that. They must go for a deeper analysis of the issues and the strengths of both the parties, right? What are the problem areas of the partners, or in a simpler sense, you will go for a short analysis of both the parties, right? Then you identify a common ground where you will be able to synergize your efforts, and then your internal and external value system should be there, and planning for the strategy that should be there. So with the proper planning, if we understand the roles and responsibilities of each and every member playing in the formation of these strategic alliances would be there, then definitely we'll be having a success in formulating these strategic alliances, right? But beyond that, organizations need to have a global vision. It should not be narrowed down to the operational level of things, right? You need to think of choosing perfect partner whenever you are going for an alliance itself, right? And more often, because of these cultural barriers, because of these communication barriers, the strategic alliances to fail. So what is required is a frequent communication between the partners itself, right? So these are the things that we need to understand related to the formation of these strategic alliances, making these strategic alliances successful itself, right? But as we say that, forming strategic alliances are no more a choice, but a compulsion for the organization. How do we make these strategic alliances successful? That depends on us. That is the kind of strategy that we need to take into account. Okay? So let us end up this session over here. And once again, we will meet to have more detailed expansion strategies related to the international market itself, right? So thank you very much and have a good day.